opportunity. Well, according to one former footballer turned teacher, it's all about self-awareness, along with other things as well. Great coaching, of course, great teachers, parents who know best how to nurture them. Steve Sallis has written a new book called Educating Football. He says he's got the answer to shaping our future athletes. Steve, hello.
Hello, Anna.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm really well, thanks. It's lovely to talk to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Now, take me back to your own early days. You started at Brighton and Hove Albion back in the 90s. What do you remember about the start of your career?
Well, I call myself on Twitter a failed footballer, if that's any consolation.
I think it's a little modest.
I was an academy player at Brighton for many years in my childhood. And that was my aspiration and my dream, I suppose. And the real story, to be honest, is more school relevant. My parallel part of my life, where I struggled. I was put in bottom set at school, and I struggled with that and failed my GCSEs. And my point and my message is about my football career is almost irrelevant because it's about dual aspiration. It's about having an aspiration to be a football player. And if you can't be a football player, go and be great at something else.
It tends to be hard, doesn't it? Because there's a particular age band where you can say that to a son or a daughter, and they will look at you and say, "No, I want to be a footballer. That's what I want to do. That's it." They find it hard at a certain age to accept that not everybody will get to do that, sadly.
I agree. I'm fortunate that I'm working with the elite end of the game now. I worked with England boys last year, under 15 national team, and I work with a lot of national performance camps with the girls. So it's an incredible opportunity for these young people. But unfortunately, and the statistics don't lie, and the statistics state that it's very, very difficult to be a football player. And in fairness, it's a bit contradictory. I have taught, as in my PE teacher days, certain players that have played professional football. So there is an opportunity to do both.
Yeah. So is it all about innate talent? Is it something that you are born with, or could you potentially take any child, any boy, any girl, and make them into a professional of the future?
The question you asked was put to me in my first ever day of university back in the 90s, and the question was born or made. The question could go on forever and ever, and I sat with my university mates in the uni bar talking at length about how difficult it was to find the answer. What I do know is that teaching and learning and hard practice hours in terms of deep practice is really important. But at the same time, there is a genetic issue and a genetic context to being an elite performer. Simply, it's football as an example is a sprint sport, and you need to be powerful, and you need to be able to move and turn and twist and do all those sort of things at the top end of the game. So there's definitely a balance to be had. But what I will say is that great coaching and great teaching can definitely add value to a youth in terms of their potential.
Yeah, you talk in the book about talent, that simple word talent, and how it's one of the most overused words in football.
Talent drives me mad, Anna, if I'm honest. Would you like me to expand?
Yeah, go for it.
Talent. There's been so many talented young people in all sports, let's not just stick to football, that haven't made a career in the game or their chosen sport, simply because 15-year-olds, as an example age, often haven't had to work really hard at that age. They don't really know what hard work looks and feels like. And I say feeling because it's such a huge element to modern sport. And therefore, talent is important. Gifted could be another word that could be used. It's been used in education as an example. But really, that talent word is, in my opinion, is majorly overused, and you can't beat effort to try and be successful.
Yeah. So actually, people talk about talent, but you need to have the other things that feed into that. You could be supremely talented, and if you haven't got the mindset and the work ethic, then it won't come to anything. Completely
perfect from you in terms of that. Learning mindset is everything. That's really what I do with my business these days. So learning mindset is the key to success. Elite behaviours is something that we talk about at the Football Association. So what behaviours are elite? How do we act? How do we interact? And then how do we react to scenarios, whether it be performance or non-performance?
What about the environment that young players are working in at the moment? Because there's a story around today. There's a 13-year-old girl who wants to be a professional footballer, and she says that she's criticised, and other girls call her a lesbian for playing a boys' sport. And there's been so much done about the mental health of people playing, about looking after their mindset. But you hear a story like that and you think, really, has anything changed?
I can categorically tell you and your listeners that it has changed, but the book's really about there's still a long way to go. Mental health, as an example, is on the rise. Children are struggling. Schools are creating exam factories. Parents are under pressure because their children need to aspire to a certain amount of GCSEs. But we all know as adults that there's plenty of ways in life to be successful. There's plenty of ways to achieve your goals. But it's really important that we look at, in my opinion, the whole child and not just the technical, tactical aspects of performance, because the physical performance aspect and the most importantly, the psychological aspect is what's really been missing in the modern game.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you talk as well about the value that is placed on sporting success and sporting achievement, or not placed on it.
Yes, I mean, people as an example can see I'm really good at football and that's okay, and my life's all right. And I suppose that's the hook again, is that it's not acceptable just to be good at sport and then get away with poor behaviours. And I suppose, coming from my teaching background, that teaching and coaching are very different. I can't deny it. I suppose my analogy is quite straightforward. As a head of year, which I was in a school, if I go to my head teacher and I say to my head teacher, my kids are on target in year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. If you use that as a football analogy, where the football clubs pick the players, so the football clubs are choosing every single player, they handpick every player, and then at 16 they say to the whole cohort of players at 16, sorry, you're not good enough for a scholarship. So I suppose it's a quite simple analogy. In a school, I don't choose any of those kids. I have 2,000 of them and I have to add value to every single child. And all I want the football industry to understand is that you handpick the kids and then you're still moaning about them saying they're not good enough. So we just need to maybe be a bit more self-aware about that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot before about the academy system and how it can work incredibly well for some players, but actually for others who get picked up, and they pick them up so young now, of course, as well. And you can be out of the door at 12, 13, 14 years old.
And therefore, my advice to parents is just rational thoughts at all times. Don't get so high when you win. Don't get so down when you lose. Be understanding that, I keep saying this about dual aspiration. Have an aspiration to do 2 things in your life or 3 things. Don't put all of your eggs in the sports basket. And the reason I say that is, I loved an injury as a player. My friends will laugh at me all the time about how many times I get injured. But my destiny wasn't to be a footballer. And my point is to young children, that's okay. It really is okay. But I'm actually happier, I think, out of that sort of lifestyle than I was when I was in it.
Yeah, it's a difficult path to tread, I suppose, isn't it? Because and parents will look at this, particularly if they've got kids in the academy system, and the mindset and the will to win is so important, and you've got to instill that into them. But then, equally, you've got to prepare them for, as you say, for the knocks if they lose as well. It is a difficult. It's a very, very fine line between the two.
I agree, and I mention in the book very many times about I have as many questions as I have answers, because I don't have all of the answers, and I don't think anyone has. What we need to do is differentiate every journey for every athlete, like we would in a school. Every person's learning journey is different. It needs to be bespoke. And at the same time, we need to ensure that we have a holistic development process which looks at the technical tactical aspects of performance, which is the on the field, but also off the field, which is the psychological, the physical stuff, and also what's going on in school, and marrying that all so the child feels comfortable with both processes.
You talk about agents as well, the fact that can be a very cutthroat world, and again, increasingly a world that young players are getting into at younger and younger ages.
For sure. And in fairness, these days, the agents are giving me a lot of my work, so I need to be thankful to them. And in fairness, I have a saying, an expert hires an expert. These agents have tough jobs. I will say this, there are many great ones out there, but there are also many agents that could be portraying their behaviours in better ways, to say it in a polite way. But the agent has a great job in the modern game. It's very important that the agent is there. My argument about agents is that they need to have a player care programme and a duty of care to ensure that the needs of the modern day athlete are met, really, which is ensuring that their off the field support is there.
And you're basically relying on individual agents to put that in place. That there's no overarching requirement to do that.
No, other than the contractual elements of it. But yet again, as I said, the great agents will mentor and support, and unfortunately, the worst ones won't. They will discard young people quite quickly as soon as they're not making them a pound note.
Yeah, which is a problem, really, because how do you weed those people out?
Well, it's not ethical and it's not moral, in my opinion, and it's not really my position to judge in that respect. But all I know is that there are some great companies out there that are doing the right things, and it's much more rigorous now. There's more attention to detail and more meat to the bone for it.
Steve, it's great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure, Anna.
Take care. Bye-bye. Steve Sallis, who's written that new book. It's called Educating Football. It is about, we're saying it's about dual aspiration. It's about, particularly if you do have a child maybe who's going through that system at the moment and it's difficult and it can be cutthroat.